Welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. I have been trying for months now, maybe even a year, to get my good friend Ryan Powell on, but this is one of the busiest men that I know. So Ryan, I'm glad we're finally able to make it happen.
It did take us a few little phone calls, text messages, calendar coordination, but hey, we're here. We made it.
We're here. Well, I like to think that it had something to do when you were out giving a lecture in San Diego a couple months ago, and it was the first time your wife was with you. It was the first time she had ever heard you present, and I think I just gave up on trying to coordinate with you, and I just talked to her.
Yeah, perfect.
So let's make this happen.
Smart plan all around.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's how my life works.
That was the first time. I've talked and done speaking engagements for many years. That was the first one that she attended. It was kind of fantastic having her there.
That's neat. So I have to ask you, when in the car ride home, when you guys left that, was she impressed and like, wow, like you're always just Ryan to me, but like, look at you, you were knowledgeable and professional and or was she like, oh, that was a little bit of a letdown?
Like a great wife, she had some good advice for me on some things I could improve. Some areas of my presentation that could use a little work. She said she did learn some things, which is, she's a great audience member.
Yep.
Because you and I, we sit in a room with a bunch of eye doctors and we learn these things. She's just like a patient. So she said there were a lot of words that she didn't understand, but she got the gist. So it was great. We did have a nice little visit to Joshua Tree. So we went up and did a little Joshua Tree hiking the next day. So we had lots of time to chat about ways I can work on my presentations.
Yeah. Well, I'm partial to your presentations, and part of it may be that we've become good friends, and but I enjoy the relaxed, laid back, real discussions that you like to have, and I really appreciate the super nerds and the scientists when they talk, but sometimes I feel like they're a little bit over my head. And I got to Google some of the words that they use because I remember hearing it in school, but I can't remember what it meant. But we talk to patients. I mean, you talk to us like a real person, and so I appreciate that style because it helps me translate it and communicate what I've learned from you back into the exam lane.
Yep.
So,
and for me, it's the only way I know to do it, right? And it's been great in my career. Kind of one of the fun things, when you go to optometry school, you get this great sort of, base layer education. And then you get out of optometry school. And, one of the cool things, probably in my last 5 to 10 years, is getting to learn from some of these PhDs that do all this research. And so, they talk in words that, I kind of remember that from science class at one time or another. But it's really cool. You learn that stuff, but you got to get it in the exam lane somehow. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. My patients, when I say the word carotenoid, right?
Yeah.
And frankly, for me, the first, yes, exactly. Sorry, that's happening. The first time in a lecture, right? You're sitting in a lecture, and these genius, bright PhD research folks are up there, and you hear those words, and you go, okay, well, how do I get that to the exam room so I can deliver this value to my patient? So, it makes it fun, and that's something I think I've tried to hone in over the years. Patient needs to be patient speak more than eye doctor speak.
Yep, I think that's very true. In fact, we're going off a little bit on tangents, but I had done some research a couple of years back at the at different grade levels. Like what grade level, if you will, should you be speaking with in common speech into patients? And I stumbled across the grade levels that presidential candidates speak at. And it's eye-opening. Like the most presidential candidates speak at a 6th to an 8th grade level. It's gone down slightly. Lincoln was pretty high. Reagan was pretty high. Our most recent candidates, not quite so high. And you could argue whether that's good, bad, or otherwise, right? But when we talk to each other, and I talk to my wife and my friends, that there's very little, 15 syllable words that I'm using. And
Right. And
so
how,
I think
and
it's
you know, how frustrating is it when you're in the audience? I've been in the audience many times, and someone will say, you know, when I'm looking at the RLA, or they throw out some acronym, and I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about, right?
yeah,
And then you're focused on, I'm trying to keep track of what they're saying here. So it's good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I'm glad nobody looks at my phone's Google search history after I've been in lectures, because like, what
Right,
does this word
exactly.
mean?
Yes, yes.
Cool. So before we jump into things, for those who haven't had the pleasure of meeting and having a beer with you, introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan Powell, I live and practice in and around Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City is a city in Missouri. For those of you that are keeping track of that, the Kansas City Chiefs are in Kansas City, Missouri. Um, but I'm the son of an optometrist. My dad had a practice in Maryville, Missouri, which is a town of 10,000 people in northwest Missouri. I went to Southern College of Optometry, got out of school, worked in the pediatric ophthalmology practice, and then started my own practice in 2004. Opened an office in a strip mall. It was me and my one employee and my wife. We had one exam lane, and then we really expanded and had two. Um, since then to today, things have grown quite a bit, and I've got 12 locations now, kind of throughout the Kansas City area, 100 miles north, 50 miles south. Um, we bought our first ophthalmology practice a couple of years ago, with a research center, that we do some research out of there. Um, but I see patients just like everybody else. I was in one of my clinics this morning, doing eye exam, so I'm actively involved in the clinic still. See patients, talk to patients just like everybody else does, and enjoy these podcasts you guys do, because oftentimes I'm driving from my home to one of these offices and get a chance to learn from our awesome colleagues that you guys have on here. Um, and I was thinking about this a little bit earlier today. I think in optometry, we all, myself included, we all have a bit of confidence in ourselves and what we're doing and how we do it. Um, but if we give ourselves the opportunity, this is what I love about being friends with guys like Aaron Warner. You give yourself an opportunity to learn how our colleagues do things, and you let that kind of, all right, let me take that little nugget and kind of figure out how to use that in my practice. I think that's really what helps me. I think keep it fun. I love it. Learn new things, figure out ways to implement these new things. Um, I think, yeah. So I'm a practicing optometrist with a big optometry practice and a lot of employees, and it's a good time, man.
Yep, and you do it well. And what I love is that you're not afraid to explore new things, and to challenge new ideas and try new things, and all for the betterment of your patients, your teams, and the industry. So we had a conversation, of what I really wanted to talk to you about here is, we've had a bunch of conversations over our friendship. Um, by the way, you were the first person to take me to gas station barbecue.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
great too, wasn't
it
it?
was fantastic. I
Yes.
was a little weirded out being a San Diego kid, where you go to gas stations to get gas, and maybe a Snickers bar and a Red Bull, but a full dining experience was
Yeah.
a new adventure, and I highly recommend it if you're ever in Kansas City, Missouri.
The
So,
best. And by the way, that's the best barbecue in town. You can ask
that was
anybody that
amazing.
knows barbecue here. And it was, at the time that you went with me, it was called Oklahoma Joe's Barbecue. They've now changed it to Kansas City Joe's Barbecue. Um, you do have to cross that very dramatic state line into Kansas to get Kansas City Joe's Barbecue. But yes, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that was good stuff. Um, so what we had talked about, and I want to jump into, to how we treat macular degeneration, and keep people healthy. And a couple of the conversations that we had, one, I thought it was interesting in a conversation with you and listening to one of your lectures. We were trained to treat sick people, or people that had sick eyes or had illnesses. We treat disease, and and we were taught to treat them with medicines and the power of the pen, and you prescribe, and or you send off for surgery or surgery consults, and that there's a mental hump that some of us have and some of our colleagues have, and I had it. Uh, when the treatment is an over-the-counter product, right? It's hey, you've got a macular degeneration. It's a blinding eye disease. We typically can't reverse it. And lifestyle changes. We're used to that with diabetes and high blood pressure. But the one main thing that we want to do is have you take a vitamin, right? Have you take a pill, take a supplement. And where do I get it? Well, I sell it here. You can find it on Amazon, whatnot. And that always felt just weird. Like we went from being a doctor to being the guy at Costco trying to hand out some free samples of whatever vitamin's going to make my hair better that day, and
yeah,
being
that's
a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's right. It's a hurdle. I think that it's kind of tough to overcome, and you've done a good job of it, and you helped me get over it years and years ago. So walk us through kind of why that's a silly mental barrier. Maybe it's a real mental barrier. What challenges we face there?
Yeah. So regarding macular degeneration specifically, we have the AREDS 1 and AREDS 2 studies, right? So the AREDS 2 study wrapped up 11 years ago. If you think back to 11 years ago, I don't know that I own any technical equipment today that is even anywhere close to what I was using 11 years ago. We've learned so much about those things. But it really, for me, in 2018, I was sitting in a lecture listening to Dr. Jim Stringham, PhD, teach us about carotenoids and DHA and EPA. And I was sitting at a table with 3 other optometrists, and the 4 of us at our table started discussing these products and asking each other, were you taking these? Are you taking these? Are you taking these? All 4 of us at our table were taking some carotenoid supplement and some fish oil. And it occurred to me when I left that education event that I was not doing a very good job with my patients because I was not proactively talking to my patients about it. So one thing that I changed immediately after that was, you know what? I'm doing this because I've learned the science and I know why these things are good for Ryan Powell. But if they're good for Ryan Powell, why aren't they good for my patients? Why am I withholding this information from my patients? And, way back when I started my practice in 2004, I said to myself, I want my patients to be the most educated patients because an educated patient will make the best decisions for themselves. Takes finances out of it, takes all the factors out of it. They get to make the choice. My job is to educate them, right? So, to your question about, all right, now I'm an optometrist. I'm in an exam room, and I have a patient. I had a patient this morning. We're looking at her eye. She's in her mid-30s. She's a fair-skinned, blue-eyed female. We're looking at her retinal photo. Our Optos image is pulled up on the screen. And I say, hey, this is your optic nerve, yada, yada. This is your macula. This is where we watch for macular degeneration. She interrupts me and says, my father has macular degeneration. My grandfather has macular degeneration. I said, great. I'm glad you mentioned that. Your macula looks great when I look at it today. However, you're a female, you're fair-skinned, you have light eye color, and you have family history, genetics. You've got some pretty strong macular degeneration factors. Let's talk about carotenoid supplements and how they can help reduce your risk of macular degeneration. All right, so that's a medical conversation. I think to your question of, we're talking about, here's my choices, right? My one choice, and frankly, what we used to do, right, in optometry is, well, I hope you don't get it. Your macula looks fine. Come back next, right?
Yeah,
come back next year. Yep, come back next year. We went from that to, well, probably back then we were doing that. And this was, in the 90s, right?
Yep.
Wear some sunglasses. If you're get your transitions lenses. Wear some sunglasses. Put a hat on when you're out in the field farming. try to keep the sun out of your eyes. Then we went to eat a Mediterranean diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I still today, this frustrates the heck out of me. You'll hear very well-known optometrists still recommending to their patients eat a Mediterranean diet. I'm not opposed to recommending to my patient that they eat a Mediterranean diet. Here's the trick of a Mediterranean diet. One, expensive.
Yep.
Most of our patients do not shop at the grocery stores where they can get a Mediterranean diet. Great. Eat more vegetables, eat more lettuce, eat more salmon, spend more money on your diet, right?
Yep.
It's not happening. Okay.
No.
So that's where supplements come in, right? So we still recommend that. We still recommend, reduce. If you're a smoker, stop smoking, right? If you stop smoking, there's a study out there that if you discontinue smoking for 20 years, that macular degeneration risk factor from smoking, so 3.5 to 5 times greater risk of macular degeneration if you're a smoker. You reduce that smoking. If you stop smoking over 20 years, that risk factor goes back down to being the same as someone who never started smoking in the first place. Our patients don't know that, right? So I think when you're educating your patient with these types of things, to me, and many of our colleagues like to use the word, I'm going to prescribe this supplement that I want to start you on that's going to help protect your macula. Good old Midwestern Ryan Powell, casual mojo in the exam room.
Yeah.
It's not my style. My style is, I tell my patient this morning, what I would recommend for you is we need to put you on a carotenoid supplement that helps build up the pigments in your retina. Now, the word carotenoid is in there, right? And they all get this sort of blank stare on their face.
Exactly.
Carotenoid supplement. So I always explain to them, carotenoids are pigments that give vegetables their color. As an example, tomatoes are red because they have lycopene in them. That's the carotenoid that makes it red. And I tell them, you can get carotenoids by eating vegetables. So you should definitely do your best to eat a lot of vegetables. The more vegetables you eat, the more carotenoids you're going to get. But to me, I think that conversation in the exam room, when we're talking, and this is someone who doesn't currently have macular degeneration, right? So this is, I want to help you not move to having macular degeneration down the road. But you fall into that bucket of, you've got these risk factors. We should talk about doing something for your eyes. Now, here's the beauty of this. I take my patient out and I hand her off to Jordan. He's one of our opticians, does our checkout at this location. Hand this patient off to Jordan this morning. This patient may decide not to do anything, right?
Yep.
My job is not to make them do it or not do it. My job, and this is again Ryan Powell's view of this. I've armed them with the ability to make a choice, and I've given them the education and the information, right? So I find that it's an exam room discussion. It's all about here's what this does. The other interesting thing, patient this morning, I explained to her that when you take a carotenoid supplement, particularly one with mesozeaxanthin, you build up your blue light protection. And so she asked me, this patient was an attorney, so she said to me, do I need to get blue light glasses? She's on the computer all day. She asked me that after I mentioned this, right? Yep. I said, it certainly doesn't hurt. You can put some blue light glasses on, but you're going to get your blue light protection, and most of it comes from the sun. So yeah, you're getting some from that computer all day, but really when you go outside and you're in the sun, you take this carotenoid once a day, take it with some food. You're doing great things to help reduce your risk of macular degeneration, reduce the oxidative stress on those RPE cells, and you're blocking that blue light from damaging them. Yep. So that was a long answer. I don't know if that answered your question.
That was a long answer. It was a good one, which is why I didn't interrupt. What I like about that is I think it's important that we use appropriate terminology. in the exam lane when appropriate. So definitely talking about, carotenoids and how but what they do, not just you need carotenoids, but you need carotenoids to build up the macular pigment, which is protective and helps with not just being protective against disease states, but also helps with better contrast sensitivity so you can see better in low light environments. Right? Helps with the photoreceptors to function how they're supposed to function and function properly. And
Yeah.
and then hey, you can get it from XYZ diet, but we need to add more to it because we need, either you're not getting it enough because you have a disease or you're at a high risk. So let's try to be proactive
Yeah.
to do it. So you're
You
giving
know,
them the reasons.
what's interesting kind of about your point of, when we're talking to patients about supplements, is that a medical discussion?
Yep.
Is it as medical as we want to be, right? I think in our practices, I think of it often like talking about dailies contact lenses.
Mm-hmm.
We used to, when dailies contact lenses were first around, my patients don't really want dailies. They cost more. Maybe I got a patient with some allergies. Well, even another great example, think back to when cyclosporin eye drops, Restasis, was first around.
Yep.
When did I prescribe Restasis? I waited for the worst possible dry eye patient, debilitating dry, and I thought, maybe they'll want some treat, right? Maybe
Yeah.
they'll want to know there's this option out there, right? Dailies is a great example of, we're not being good caretakers of our patients if we're not asking them or giving them this option, right? I mean,
Yep.
I'll give you a good example. My last patient today is a 21-year-old kid. First time he's come to see us. He's a sphere patient. I don't tell him he needs to wear dailies, but I say, hey, here's the options. You've been wearing a monthly. You thought about wearing dailies, right? Oh my gosh, yeah, I love it, right? I think it's the same thing when it comes to how are we taking the best care of our patients. I know that the best thing for my patients is for them to do some supplements,
Yep.
carotenoid supplementing. We put them on a good triglyceride fish oil supplement. And I feel a little bit like I'm doing them I don't feel a little bit, I feel a lot like it's a disservice to them if I'm not teaching them about these things.
Yep. I like that a lot. It reminds me of a book I read by Daniel Pink. I don't know if you've done much work with Daniel Pink. He's a sales guy. He wrote a book called Drive, and but one of the quotes that I wrote down from that book, I think it was from that book, but he talks about how everything's selling and selling isn't a bad deal. Usually when we're thinking about selling, it's that used car salesman type of and hawking stuff. But what he said, and I love it, I'll pull it up and read it to quote it. He says, to sell well is to convince someone else to part with resources, usually money, not to deprive that person, but to leave them better off in the end. And so what you're really doing is serving, which is improving somebody else's life and in turn improving the world. So I tie that directly into what you were saying with the education, right? You're not trying to sell anything, but an educated person can make a better decision.
And think of the the history of sort of being in optometry, right? So this same sort of topic happened when it went from straight top bifocals to no line bifocals, progressives. Our dad's generation of optometrists, I don't know if this patient's going to want to pay for a no line bifocal, or they're going to want the straight top, right? Then it went, then in contact lenses we had the same thing, right? But to me, I think it's one of those. The performance aspects of carotenoids. I think that was really, for me, the missing piece. Patients that have macular degeneration, we can very easily reference, there were 2 studies done over 10 years ago that taught us that we can reduce the risk of progression by taking vitamins. It's pretty well known. It's on TV. People have heard of this. They know about it, right? And a bunch of our patients already are going to the grocery store and grabbing an AREDS 2 supplement because grandpa has macular degeneration. So all they need from us is a little education on, well, here's what's in that. Here's what here's why that isn't exactly what you need. A great thing I learned a month or so ago is that when you have patients taking multivitamins, most of those multivitamins will have the vitamin C, the vitamin E, already some zinc in the multivitamin. The AREDS2 formula, you're doubling up the C and the E and the zinc when you put them on the AREDS2. So it's the carotenoid and the EPA and DHA, which, as you know, you and I know, and lots of us talk about, the EPA and DHA that's in the AREDS2 formula they get at the grocery store is ethyl ester EPA and DHA, not the stuff you want. Triglyceride EPA and DHA. So they're better off taking their multivitamin and then you putting them on the EPA DHA fish oil that's a triglyceride. We use TG omega 3, and then we put them on macular.
The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. So I'm curious how you bring this up to patients, because the way I present it, and I agree, I don't want to double them up, right? I want them to have the carotenoids, and based on the studies, I'm a believer in the lutein zeaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin formulation, especially in the early stages, or if it's being proactive. I don't necessarily think they need everything else. So I'll ask them, hey, are you taking a multivitamin, taking anything else? The answer is usually yes. So I'll follow it up by saying, great, then I want you just to take this because it only has what you need. I don't need to double up on everything else, right? The AREDS2 has all the other stuff in it. If you're not taking it, then maybe I'll look at the MacuHealth Plus that has the other vitamins in with it. But it's neat to have that kind of discussion with them, so it doesn't feel like I'm trying to, I don't want to say put an agenda, but I want to have them part of the conversation with me, so they feel like they're a part of it and there's some education behind it. You do something similar when you're explaining?
Yeah, and I think we can kind of put the patients into kind of three categories. So you've got patients with intermediate macular degeneration. Mm-hmm. Those patients we know, and that's what was studied in the AREDS2 study, right? So those patients we know need vitamin C, vitamin E. They need less zinc than AREDS2 had. They need DHA and EPA, triglyceride instead of ethyl ester. They need the lutein zeaxanthin, the meso. And we know now that, up to 25% estimates of people don't convert lutein to meso. So we want to put them on something with meso. So those are your intermediate. They've got drusen, 125 micrometer drusen. So they're intermediate macular degeneration. We're following standard of care guidelines with them. Then you have this category of patients that are the lady I saw this morning. You've got some risk factors. We've got some reasons that we need to be proactive about macular degeneration. let's talk about a carotenoid supplement, MacuHealth, where you're getting your carotenoids, and here's what they do. Here's what they do related to macular degeneration, right?
Yep.
Then the other category is all my other patients, right? Everybody else, right? Which includes me. So all my other people, which I historically just ignored, I don't really care about you reducing glare, having better contrast sensitivity,
Yeah.
we'll
I
change
don't
your
want you to
glasses, you'll
see
be fine.
better. That's what I do. But I don't want you to necessarily have to do. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I love Ted McElroy's on his wall. And actually, we help people see, right? Well,
Yeah.
carotenoid supplements have been studied that reduce glare, they improve contrast sensitivity, they help vision and reaction performance. And and you've heard me talk about this, but all right, vision and reaction. Do my average Joe patient is not out there trying to hit fastballs and return 90 mile an hour tennis serves, right? But they're driving around on the highway I'm driving around on,
Yep.
and we got wide expanses of space out here in the Midwest, so people are driving all over the place, right? You're driving in all kinds of traffic out there in Southern California. You got it. Vision and reaction is critical. Light sensitivity, and so that whole category of patients, I was terrible about having any conversation with them. Most of us generally don't have that conversation. And so I tried to kind of learn some tools, primarily as tools to prompt myself to bring up the conversation, right? Because you kind of have to have little nuggets. You're in the room, you've done 10 other things, brains, off on whatever. What's going to make me have this conversation? So for me, it always is when I'm looking at their Optos image and I show them their macula and I say, this is your macula. This is where we watch for macular degeneration. Macular degeneration is the leading cause of blindness in the United States today.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Because you should eat a Mediterranean diet and wear sunglasses, and right? Well, that's why, right? We weren't doing anything 20 years ago. Those people now have macular degeneration, right? And then I say to them, your macula looks great, but I want to talk to you about a couple supplements that I recommend to my patients that help keep your eyes healthy, keep your brain working well, also help all over your body. And those two things are carotenoids, which are lutein, zeaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin. Those are the pigments that are in your eye. We want to make sure you've got those and they're working great. And a triglyceride fish oil with a good amount of DHA, because the DHA is very prominent in rod photoreceptors, very important in your retina, and also really important in your brain. And when you take the two together, they actually work even better with each other. And if you just have that little, that's Ryan Powell's little blurb, right? Here's my little blurb.
Yep.
And my patient, we've been in enough exam rooms, or if you're new to being in the exam room, you're saying this while you're looking at your patient.
Yeah.
And if you've got the patient that's doing this thing with you, they understand what's going on, they're listening to you, then you talk to them about, all right, here's what carotenoids are, here's what I'm recommending, here's what we want to do. Many times your patients will say, oh, I'm glad you brought this up. I've got this vitamin or this vitamin. I didn't really know what to do, but I'm trying to do something.
Yep.
And I'm just thankful that you're helping me navigate this super confusing world of supplements, right?
Yeah.
You might have a patient that gives you a kind of, shuffles off and, and you just read that. That's totally fine, right? I did my role, my job. I educate them. I tell them. And guess what? Next year when they're back, same thing. They want to come see Ryan Powell for an eye exam. I'm going to tell them the same thing again.
They're going
to
hear it again. Yep.
And they're going to hear it again. And again, they get the choice, right?
Yep.
So that's
I like that.
A little prompt, right?
Yeah. I like that. I started saying, because I wanted to bring some levity for myself, and I needed a reason for me to explain why I didn't talk about it last time when I first started talking about it, right? And I'll be honest, it was 100% for me. Patients didn't care. Like, they didn't say, well, you didn't bring it up last time, but I felt that. So what I started saying is that, similar to you in the exam room, looking at them, said, hey, I want to talk to you about taking care of the macula. And it's kind of silly because in the past, we only really addressed carotenoids and macular pigment and good vision if you had macular degeneration, or if you were a professional baseball player trying to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball. So we kind of ignored the rest of us, but that's silly because I still deserve good vision too. So I apologize that historically we haven't done this, and it's a laugh, it's a humor, and then I can bring in we're still elite athletes driving a car at a little bit faster than 65 on the freeway and at nighttime and in poor lighting conditions and whatnot. So I use that as a bridge for me, just to make me feel better, to break the gap. It surprisingly, people have been very, very responsive, and I deserve good vision too. I'll look at that. Half of them say I'll think about it. The other half end up buying something, and I'll make sure to note when they come back again. Hey, did you get it? Did you try it? Did you notice a difference? And I think you guys said that you just brought in a life meter too, but that's been fun to watch the scores go up. And it's really
that's great. I love the way you brought that up. Hey, we used to wait for you to have macular degeneration showing up in your eye before we ever even talked to you, right? Or we waited for you to ask us about it.
Yes.
You said to me, hey, I want to hit fastballs. Can you help me, do better? Oh yeah, I've got this thing, right? No, that's a great little way to do that. And the life meter, we just brought the life meter in as well. What a great tool, right? So now the patient that puts their finger on that thing and goes, what does this number mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why should I be here, but I'm over here? All right, well, let's talk about what that means. Let's talk about the value. The skin is skin is the best, most effective way of measuring your current carotenoid. So think about like your A1C, right?
Yep.
The skin is how are you doing with your carotenoids? Boom, you're going to know. And with there's a test, omegaquant.com is a website that someone can order a little skin test. So you do a little finger prick, put your finger on a little card. And if you have a patient that is on fish oil, that's a good way to find out, is their omega, are they actually getting the omega-3s out of their fish oil that they're thinking they're getting? Because it'll give them a little quantitative number. And now with Life Meter, boom, we know our carotenoid, our patient's carotenoid levels. And what an easy way, talk about an easy way instead of having a prompt in the exam room, right? Yeah. Well, patients put their finger on this thing, and when they're in my room, I've got a carotenoid number.
Yeah, it's solved, right? We do it at check-in on everybody that checks in. My front desk does it. Yeah. And quite frankly, the staff were the ones who wanted it. As soon as they saw it, they said, we need this in. But I like that we demystify it and make it not a doctor test, but a front desk test when they're checking in.
Yeah.
They get their score, they get their number. Most everybody's average. Although we thought when we first got it that we got a broken unit, because we had a bunch of people that their numbers were so low. We said, this can't possibly be right. It was right. They were low. No. You start talking to them like, what's your diet? Well, the 4 of the cheeseburgers from McDonald's at lunch, and monsters and Takis all day long, right? You're eating like crap. And it was amazing. But it gives them something to talk about, so they're not sitting in their phone in the optical playing, on their phone watching TikToks. They've already started this process. So by the time it comes to me, I get to come in and go, hey, what's your number? Right? You did the finger reading. Right, what's the number? And now they're educating me, and we get to have a conversation. And most people we find are average. So I go, great. How does it feel to be average? Right? Average Joe. And they do exactly what you did, right? They laughed. And so now I brought in an emotional interaction that they're going to remember. And to your point, it gives me a chance to educate, and then they get to choose. And the people that are on a supplement already, I don't want to get into a tit for tat on whose is better and how they're working, because everybody works differently. So instead I say, cool, we've got your number. Now let's track this. You're on the supplement. It should be higher if you're really taking it, or 2, like you're just starting. Cool. Let's see if it goes up. And if it does, awesome. If it doesn't, maybe we should think about changing some things. so that you're getting the full effect that you're spending your money on.
Yeah, that's great. A couple points to touch on there. One, patients that are currently taking supplements, um, you'll have the patients that they're already on supplements, and when I have a patient that's already on some supplement, I say that is fantastic because
Yep.
that patient already understands the value of
Yes.
trying to do the best they can, right? Then for me, it's an education about here's the supplement you're taking. Here's what I know about the supplement that I recommend. So I'm going to educate you about what I know about this, and then you get to decide.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them, particularly with fish oil, um, they know it's good. They know they should take something.
Yeah.
Heck, the first fish oil I took, I went to the local grocery store, bought the biggest gallon I could find, right, right,
Yeah.
and
The Costco mentality,
even
right?
that,
Yeah.
yeah, you're like, I don't know the difference. And in order for me to justify spending $42 instead of $18, you better give me a reason, right? I don't know the
Yeah.
difference. Um, so I think the you've got those patients. Then you also have patients. I always kind of joke that you've got the patient that says my sister-in-law sells supplements through her pyramid scheme, and they're the
Yeah.
best ever, and I'm always buying them. That's fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm glad you're taking something, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned, and I think this is I think a lot of where this exam room thing kind of fits. Selling, right? Like this feeling of where do I get this product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the product that I recommend to you can be purchased in two places. It can be purchased here in our office, or it can be purchased by getting online and ordering it in a couple different places, right? Um, we learned a long time ago that we shouldn't feel bad about recommending better glasses and
Yep.
better contact lenses. So why do we feel bad about recommending better eye care, right? And the fact that the difference is a lot of what we recommend is an ongoing treatment plan
Yep.
versus where you do it at home. So I'm recommending this treatment plan for you. You take this every day. I'll see you back next time.
Yep.
It's not I'm going to give you an injection today while you're here in my office, which is what a physician's office does, right?
Yep.
I'm not feeling well. Bam, here's your shot, or give me my steroid injection, or I get my shots in my knee every now and then for my inflammation, or my shoulder, whatever it might be. Um, our treatment plans are ongoing. I need you to
Mm-hmm.
use this eye drop. I want you to use it twice every day. I'm going to see you back in 6 or 8 weeks. We're going to see how how the treatment's going. But you need to purchase it. You need to take it home with you and use it. I think the same with these supplements, right?
Yep.
Um, so I think taking that feeling guilty about, and again, what if they don't buy it, right? What if they don't purchase it? What if they never take it? That's not for me to decide, right? Um,
Yep.
I think that's their prerogative whether they want to. You mentioned the diet thing. It's funny. I heard something not too long ago where someone said, "How bad is the American diet when a guy that eats Subway sandwiches all day is a like poster boy for
For
how to
healthy.
eat
Yeah.
a better for how
Yeah.
to eat better, right? Like
Oh,
this is the best example of how to eat better because you all eat so poorly. But if you just do this, you'll
you
do
look
better.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like you. Yeah. I like that you brought up that, hey, the supplement I recommend in here, we've already gone over the why, but that you can get in multiple places. So it again, for us as a customer, I'm expected to be sold something. If I'm walking into a store, I'm expecting them to sell me a solution for whatever problem I walked into the store with, whether it's a grocery store, Best Buy, my doctor's office. The quite frankly, if I go to when I go to my doctor and he says, "Hey, go to the pharmacy and pick this up," that's a pain in the rear end. So thankfully, my doctor's office is a medical building and the pharmacy's downstairs, so I don't have to go to another store. So
yeah,
what we
yeah,
say is look, here's a supplement we recommend. You can get them, like you said, multiple places. You can get them online. We have it here for your convenience, and quite frankly, it's what we take. So we have it here for our convenience too, and we
yeah,
price it a few bucks less, right? If you happen to find it cheaper, go for it. But we want to have everything here for you for your convenience. And by the way, when you're running out, you can either call us and we'll order more and ship it to you, or come in and have your finger scanned again, get your life meter score, so you can see that it's working. right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
stop in,
It's
no
perfect.
appointment. Like give them a reason to engage back. Let's follow this little journey together.
Yeah. Yeah. That's perfect. You know, it just popped into my head while we were talking about this. One of the best places that I went to before, and then the gal that cuts my hair now is a different place, but when they would cut your hair, they get done doing your haircut, guy's haircut, right?
Yeah.
And then they, let me put a little bit of this goop stuff in your hair, right? Look, there's the stuff. This place then would say, oh, what do you think of that? Oh yeah, it works pretty good. And I'm like, I need some of that at home.
Yeah.
So we're in this place, they walked you up front where all their, they got all 100 bottles of this, whatever stuff they
Uh-huh.
got. And they pick up the one and they go, here's the stuff I put in your hair today, the one that we used. And you're like, oh, perfect. Give me that stuff.
Yep.
I need some of that to use in my hair, right? They just made it eat. Had they said, here's the name of it, let me write it on the back of this card for you.
Oh
Here you
yeah,
go,
never.
Ryan. Good luck, right? I'm like, oh my Lord, I don't know what like
Yeah,
can we
I'm gonna stick with
simplify
my
this? So
purple LA Looks gel instead. No, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, hey Amy, next time you're at the grocery store, give me some stuff. I don't know what they put it, right? And again, that's not medical, but that's just an example of just the process. We at optometry try to overcomplicate everything. I think we're so worried about this. Well, I don't know if they want this. I don't know if they want to do that. Here's what I believe. My patients want to see great.
Yeah.
They want to see the best they can see, right? And they get to decide where on this scale of spending their money they want to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not for me to decide. We're not the least expensive place to get your eyes checked. We will never be the least expensive. We're not going to sell you cheap, cruddy glasses that you can't see out of. Um, the other thing, I think a long time ago, when I started practicing, the idea of discussing cost or the price of something in the exam room was something that we were kind of taught. You don't talk about that stuff in the exam room. Prescribe your
Yep.
products, make your recommendations, and I think that's a great strategy for those that do that. I'm not opposed to that at all. It's not my style when it comes to two things. One is dailies contact lenses. Because when I mention dailies to someone who's never worn them before, the first shutdown on that is, ooh, those are way more expensive, right?
Yep.
So I have a little discussion. I have a little spiel that I go through with them on, here's how this math works. Um, just so they have a little bit of an understanding. Yes, the answer is yes, they're more expensive.
Yeah.
But let me explain to you. Yeah, let me explain to you a little bit of the math formula, right? I don't write down the numbers, but I kind of give
Oh.
them. When I talk to them about supplements, fish oil, for example, you want your patient to take a triglyceride fish oil because EPA and DHA, those amino acids, when they're in the fish, they're in a triglyceride chemical structure. Every company that makes fish oil converts them into an ethyl ester chemical structure, and they need to convert them back into that triglyceride chemical structure. The reason for that step is bioavailability. It's going to actually get to the tissue in your body we want it to get to, and we're going to remove the toxins when we did the processing.
Yep.
Well, which one is cheap? So you explain that to your patient and you say, it's really cheap if a company does the first step and then says, here, sell these to someone, right?
Yeah.
So now you know the difference between an $18 jug at the grocery store and a $50 jug at the grocery store, right? There's the difference. You want the $50 ones because they're the ones that are doing what they're supposed to. And by the way, ethyl ester fish oil, if you break them open and put them in a styrofoam cup, they'll eat through the walls of it.
Yeah.
Don't put that in your body, right? So,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah.
So that's a little price discussion, right? Like I'm explaining to them the science so they understand what is the difference here, right? What's the price difference? With carotenoid supplements, I think the same thing. I'm not bashful about telling them the supplement I recommend comes in a bottle with 90 of them in a bottle. That's a 3-month supply. And here's our price for that product. It's not the inexpensive stuff, but here's why I recommend it. It's been studied, peer reviewed, placebo controlled,
Yep.
third party tested. they've actually improved the formula so it dissolves more bioavailability in your body. I know that stuff works, and I know it works great. And put your finger on that life meter when you're back next time. We haven't had ours as long as you have, but right, prove to yourself
Yeah.
that it's going to work well. But here's why I recommend it. It's not the cheap stuff. I would never recommend to you the cheap stuff.
No.
So I don't think it's a bad thing in this discussion with patients to have that dialogue in the exam room.
I agree with you 100%. I don't shy away from price. I think price is always there. It's always present. Right? I've never been to a restaurant, whether it was McDonald's or 5-star Michelin restaurant, that didn't have a price on the menu. Right. And I've never been swayed by price, except for wine, because I don't know my wine, so I know not to buy the cheap one because it doesn't taste good, right? There's going to be some quality that goes along with the price with it,
right.
But I think that I like to hit price because then it gets it out of the way. Hey, it's this much. I don't need to apologize for it. I don't even feel like I need to justify it. This is how much it is, and I'm going to move on, right, to the education part, and let them decide whether it's worth it or not for them. And you can't make that decision at all. Some people would laugh at the amount of money I used to spend on my bikes when I raced triathlons, right? But then I, can't figure out why I'm spending so much money on my daughter's dance costumes that she seems like she's only going to wear once, right? They're just the different values are there. And she doesn't understand why I spend money that I do, because her dance stuff is there's a value to her for it. And so I think that the price is not good, bad, or otherwise. It's just what it is. So the sooner you can acknowledge it and go past, you're good.
Yeah. One of our doctors that I work with, we were chatting the other day, and he takes his son to one of the baseball academies, you could call it, here in town. His son goes in there, and they do plyometrics training. So they're doing speed and agility training. They're doing eye-hand coordination training, and they take him in there. These parents are paying a fee to take him in there 2 nights a week for 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12, right? Whatever it costs, no one asks. No. Well, no one there cares about the cost. Now, there's a lot to be discussed there about that. Demographics.
That's a whole different
kind of
discussion.
Stinks, but that's a whole other. But anyway, these people are in there spending this money. Boom, boom, boom. My wife went and watched our nephew play baseball this past weekend, and she came home and she was explaining to me that they now wear sliding mitts on their hands.
That's like little oven mitts when they're sliding.
Oven mitts, and you've seen a professional baseball player too that, don't want to jam their fingers. Well, it's a thing now for my 3rd grade nephew. These things are 70, 80, 90 bucks because you got to get the right looking one. And they got ones that match this uniform and this uniform. And, I mean, it's craziness, right? But my optometrist buddy was saying when he takes his kid there, or the optometrist that works with me, he was like, these people, we need to talk to these people about this vision performance benefits of carotenoids. There's a case study with Georgia SEC baseball player and taking MacuHealth specifically, and the benefits that he saw, vision reaction and glare reduction.
Yep. I think that it's been interesting. The last couple of years, I've been on a really big, KPI kick within my practice, and I've talked about it quite a bit. And it's amazing how much we don't know because we don't track. And so until I started asking patients what the value was, what the improvement was when they started to supplement, I didn't know. Hey, what's putting them on a daily contact lens? Hey, did you notice a difference in your life? Oh my gosh, it was just so much better, right? So, but I needed to hear that so that I built my confidence in being able to prescribe it again and talk about it again, and then I can bring it in and say, hey, we've had patients come back and say that, they felt more comfortable driving at night. They felt like it enhanced their quality of life. My team needed to hear that. I needed to hear it. Now I can share it with other patients. So I think when you start down this road, ask them, talk to them. Don't just say, are you doing it? But hey, what have you noticed? Because most people don't proactively offer back their objectives. And then if you can quantify it in a certain way, we like the life meter. I really wanted to start doing contrast sensitivity testing, and I never was able to get that off the ground. But I think there needs to be just if there's a way to quantify something, even if it's just a real quick 3-question survey. Hey, did you notice any improvements in XYZ? And but that way they know that it works. You know that it works. One thing you brought up too, I want to make sure I don't forget. You talked about how you introduce it in your hairstylist with the hair gel. I learned this from Tom Chapman over at Peak. There's a lot of power when you put something in somebody's hand. When you go into the Apple store, they have all sorts of toys out for you to play with, because when you touch it, there's an ownership there. It's a whole lot different having something in your hand, even if it's just a bottle of MacuHealth, than just the idea of taking a supplement. So, hey, here's what I want you to take. Handing them the bottle. If they don't want it, they're welcome to hand it back to me. But when you hand them the bottle, there's an ownership there. There's almost a commitment there that that helps them step over that threshold that you want them to step over, because it's going to be good for them anyway. So if you haven't started working, just handing them or having your staff hand them something, it's super powerful, and the capture rate goes up significantly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you'll often see them turn it to the ingredients side, and they look, and that's when you go and you see that this carotenoid supplement I'm putting you on has all 3 of the macular carotenoids.
Yep.
So it has the lutein and the zeaxanthin, but also has that mesozeaxanthin, which you want to make sure you get. And that's, you're just teaching them. They're looking at it. Okay, this is what it has. Same with the fish oil, the TG omega-3, we put them on. Yeah, that's great.
No, I love it. Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you. I want to respect your time. We're getting close to that hour mark, but I really appreciate you finally jumping on. We'll send a thank you note to your wife for poking and prodding you to get you on here. But no, it's always fun catching up and chatting.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Great chatting.